Getting customers will always be hard. To Warren Buffett, to Gary Vaynerchuk, they never stop. They keep going.
Lloyd is an entrepreneur, podcast host, and community builder.
Is an inspiration in the startup world with a software engineer and passion for community building.
He experienced the Gulf War as a young refugee in Kuwait.
I didn't finish high school. I think I'm an accidental entrepreneur.
Most of the time, founders, they just keep building the product over and over and again, then speaking to the customers.
Velocity is the currency of high growth startups. All my life I had no money and I was happy. And when we sold half the company and I came into millions, I felt I lost my tribe because I left the day-to-day of the company. I got depressed.
That could be one of the reasons that you thought, let me write it in a book format that I can reach out to masses.
What brought me to sanity and good health was a community. And so I said, the world needs to hear this message.
So today with me, my friend and my mentor, Lobo, is with me. He built an R&D credit lending platform, which is bootstrapped, very interesting, and raised $150 million at this moment. And he also wrote a best-selling book called Community Grassroots to
Greatness.
Very interesting. So I like one of your posts very long back. That's how I think we started talking. I was looking at you said the best way to bootstrap for founders. Right? This caught my attention, and you wrote exactly what I was trying to do. This connected me very well, and then I started researching about Bost AI, what you do, and all of these things. Right, and it's caught my attention that you does something in similar space and already have a success story. So that's where we got connected. So yeah, if you could just give a brief intro about Bost AI, how you bootstrap the company, what's the story?
Definitely. I think I'm an accidental entrepreneur, okay? And I guess, bonus point lesson I'll share is I didn't finish high school. I was a very rebellious kid growing up, didn't finish high school, bunked all my high school exams. Most kids who don't finish high school, they wouldn't apply to university, right?
Yes.
This is the obvious one. I applied to every single university. Luck would have it, one university said, write the entrance exams. And I wrote the entrance exams, math and English. I did well. I wasn't a bad student. I was just rebellious. I didn't want the traditional path. And they asked me, where are my transcripts? And I said, they're coming. It's delayed from the school. And they said, you can start the semester, but within a month, if you don't give us the transcripts, you will have to unenroll.
Okay.
Now, luck would have it, they never followed up with me. And without a high school diploma, I graduated with an engineering degree. And so my lesson number one before going into anything is luck and risk are two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
My life has been a series of lucks, but luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. The ones that get lucky are the ones that never stop flipping. Risk, 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 risk. So in university, I met my best friend, Alex Popa, and we were partners in every project through engineering. He was the brains behind the development. I was the front guy. And that was our journey. And, I say that because after I finished engineering, I didn't have the desire to work in engineering. And this brings me to my life lesson too. I didn't have the desire to work in engineering. And I asked somebody, if I wanted to be a business person, an entrepreneur someday, what is the best skill I could learn? And they told me everything you do as an entrepreneur is communication. Convincing your wife that you're not going to bring money. Convincing customers that you don't have any product, but please buy it. Convincing employees to work on low pay. And even when you scale, convincing investors, convincing senior experienced leaders to join on the vision is all communication. Now, when that happened, I thought to myself, man, I'm not a very self-motivated individual. Most people are not self-motivated, right? Self-motivated is not, I'm living on the beach in Palm Jumeirah and I show up. Self-motivation is, do you show up when you're repeatedly punched in the face? And I knew that if I took a public speaking class and somebody laughed at me, I wouldn't show up. So I started looking up all the jobs that I could apply for that would teach me how to speak. And I realized that sales is the only job that'll force you to communicate day in, day out. Nobody would give me a sales job except one startup founder. He needed cold callers. So my first job was cold calling. And my parents lost it. They're like, your friends are working at Microsoft and these companies, and you're cold calling for minimum wage. Fast forward today, because of that one skill, I'm everything I am, that first job. Because think about it. I got a job cold calling for a founder. And I'm picking up the phone, polishing my messaging on the fly, trying to understand customers' pain points. Now, the next job I applied for, because I only work for a startup founder, no other big company would give me a job. But my next job was also with a startup founder. And there I progressed from doing cold calling to doing sales and getting customer requirements and marketing. It was a little bit of everything, which is the job of a founder anyway. And from there, I progressed to my next job because my first two jobs was the startup. My third job was running sales and marketing for another venture-backed startup. So what happens is you become the average of the people you surround yourself with. And when my best friend from university, when Alex called me and he said, I want to do a startup, I jumped at the opportunity because I already knew what it was like to work for a founder.
Okay.
I already knew the risk appetite. I had already acquired the skills of talking to customers, figuring out their pain points, translating it into product requirements, and then turning that into marketing messaging. That was my job working for early stage founders. And so the lesson number 2 is 4 essential skills you need to be successful at anything. Number 1, your companions matter the most. You become the average of the people you surround yourself with. You want to get fit? Hang around, make friends with fit people. You want to be an entrepreneur? Make friends with people who are where you want to be and hang out with them. You become the average of them because it manifests. You manifest the conversations and everything just comes to you. The second thing is communication. Like I said, communication is everything. Without communication, you don't have an audience. You have an empty room. The third thing is your ability to create. Whether you're creating products or music or art or playbooks, which you do in companies when you're starting out, you're selling and doing everything yourself, then you create playbooks or content. It's all creation. And the fourth thing, without this, you have nothing. You can be the best communicator and have the best creation and have the best community and companions. But without consistency, you have nothing. From Mr. Beast to Warren Buffett to Gary Vaynerchuk to the single richest person in B2B SaaS is Larry Ellison. They never stop. They keep going. So anyway, I had these 2 things in me now, imbibed working with founders. And that was probably the best thing I could do. I lucked into it. I had the opportunity to work for a founder and over again. So when Alex called me, he was working for a Big 4 accounting firm. And he had a unique experience. After engineering, he worked at a big tech company. And then he did a startup. That startup failed. And when that startup failed, he said, man, I think I failed because I don't understand accounting and finance. So he went and studied accounting and finance. Now I had this unique combination of engineering and accounting. So that experience took him into the world of government funding and R&D tax credits. And he was working for a Big 4 accounting firm. And then he calls me and he's like, man, this process is manual. It's broken. We need to automate it. And you know, globally, hundreds of billions of dollars are provided by governments to fund innovation and R&D, helping businesses who develop new products and improving existing products, because innovation ultimately drives the world. Unfortunately, these programs are cumbersome to apply for. It's prone to government audits. And getting the money takes a long time. So Alex called me and he said, man, like, we're doing this manually. We're taking the data manually. We're writing these forms. We're writing long reports. The government audits, we defend them. He's like, it's crazy. And so I jumped at the opportunity because, you know, you have an idea. Where do you start? You want to be in a situation where the industry is largely manual. It's a recurring need, meaning something that's needed every single year. And the landscape of people's providing it is all manual. It's all services. It's cumbersome. It's broken. And that's where you can offer a 10x solution. Now, when we started, everyone was making fun of us. Oh, it's a small niche. It'll never grow. And, everything starts small, right? If you go too broad and too big, then you're trying to please everyone. And when you try to please everyone, you're pleasing no one. When you niche down, when you go small and boil it down to the smallest segment, then you find white space. And the white space we found in targeting this R&D tax credits and government funding automation was that, man, there was nobody who was automating it. Nobody was building technology for it. But think about the opportunity, the long-term opportunity is to automate it. I need to integrate with the technical systems of a company, their Jira, their GitHub, their project management systems. I need to integrate with their financial systems, their payroll, their accounting systems like QuickBooks or Xero, and then their banking systems to understand their stable company. As a function of that, if you got to always skate to where the puck is going. You got to see where your goalpost is. And it's not here. It's like somewhere far. So I'm like, if I have access to this data, technical and financial data, there's no company on the planet that's required to connect those two together, technical and financial. What was the other insight is most companies, they know what sales does, right? You're in the finance space. You know what sales does. Sales sells, there's some business outcome. Marketing generates some leads, there's some business outcome. Every department, you know what's going on. Operations, they service customers, customers pay you. What does engineering do? Engineering goes and builds something. How does it tangibly tie to financial outcomes? In every single board meeting, and I sit on 3 boards, one of them is a public company. Engineering does something, but nobody can map out what exact financial outcome it generates. So our thing was, if we can automatically collect this technical data and stitch it with financial data, we have more information than any company on the planet. And we can then turn R&D actions into real financial outcomes for the business. We can securitize R&D. So we started with automating these tax credits. Then we realized the government takes a long time to pay it. So we raised a $100 million credit facility to say, we'll give you the money. Why wait to get the money from the government? Plug your tech stack and financial stack to Boast, and for every month you spent on product development, we'll give you the money now. And now the next product it is that we have coming out is R&D analytics. Who you should hire, what projects you should invest in. What is the financial outcome of your R&D and innovation? So again, if you look back at starting up, because I had only worked at venture-backed companies before, and they all failed before I joined, me and Alex came together to work on Boast, we had no option but to bootstrap. And it was a small, obscure idea. You can't even raise money for this. People are like, what is this? Like, it doesn't seem like a big market. But in our mind, it was, we're targeting companies that are investing in innovation. And if you follow innovation, you'll build something big. Innovation rules the world, right? Every dollar spent in innovation, this is a stat. I wrote an article on this for Bloomberg. Every dollar spent in innovation returns 20 to the economy. From vaccines to robots to clean drinking water is a function of innovation. Yet 90% of the innovations, they just die. They never get off the ground. Why? Because 1, they don't have access to money, which we were solving with Boast. And 2, they don't have access to know-how on where to invest or how to hire or how to take it to market. And that we're solving now through R&D analytics. So we said, you know what? Ignore the naysayers. VCs and investors, nothing wrong with them, by the way. Some of my closest friends are investors. I'm an LP in 10 funds. But they're incentivized to provide an outsized return through their LPs, through their investors, which are institutions and wealthy individuals. If they don't provide an outsized return, then the LPs will put it in the S&P 500, right? They'll put it in an index fund. And so for VCs to keep going on, they got to find things that are obvious to them that will become multi-billion-dollar companies. And we weren't an obvious case. And, we never wanted to raise because we had seen what happens when you fundraise, right? All the fundraised venture-backed companies I'd been a part of had failed. Alex wanted to maintain control. He was all about control. He's like, hey, the day we can turn 1 into 3, we'll take money. So we went on this path of bootstrapping, and a lot of the people would say, man, this is not going to be anything big. But ultimately, you win by having a contrarian view and being right. Contrarian view number 1 was, we're going to target startups. Everyone was laughing because the startup scene in 2011-12 back in Canada and the US was, outside of Silicon Valley, was mostly like Dubai. There's no scene, right? I mean, there was a scene, but it was growing. And so everyone would say, like, the big 4 accounting firms would laugh at us. They're like, you're going to go bankrupt. These guys are never going to pay you. So your contrarian view is, no, this market is going to be huge. We can go after all businesses, but all businesses now want established firms. Even if you're doing it manually and your service sucks, they want established firms. But startups, they will want to work with innovators because you don't want to service them because they don't pay. So now we can service them. So that was one contrarian bet. And contrarian bet number 2 is, if we collect this data, this technical and financial data, that data eventually across thousands of customers will be so valuable that you can provide some of the best business insight, right? Because if you look at the most valuable companies on the stock market, especially in the product-led growth space, they're spending north of 30-40% on R&D.
Okay.
Right? So you're adding value to their bottom line. You're making the R&D valuable in board meetings. And that bet honestly played out. But sitting here and building a company that's worth a lot, you can say these things. When we were in it, when we started, we didn't know these things. We had to figure it out. It was throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. So we had the idea. What was step number 1? Step number 1 was figure out who you sell to. Who is your ideal customer profile? We didn't start like with some great strategy that we're going to target startups and it's going to explode. It wasn't like that. It sounds like that, but it wasn't. It was very much happenstance.
Great entrepreneurs always pivot fast.
Yeah,
that's
pivot
what one
fast.
of my friend told me.
See, here's the thing. Everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face. Quote by the famous Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face. So move fast, break things, and iterate and pivot along the way.
Yes.
Velocity, meaning moving fast in the right direction, is the currency of all high growth startups. So when we started, we had the same thought, right? We're going to automate government funding and tax credits for businesses. Let's target the most established companies. That was manufacturing, construction, oil and gas. So I did what I knew best, cold calling. So I picked up the phone, started calling oil and gas, manufacturing, construction. Nobody would take my calls. It sounds like a scam, right? Hey, we're going to get you some money from the government, no interest, no equity, best form of capital, and you pay us a fee when you get the money. And even if they know about it, and it doesn't sound like a scam, they're like, I'm working with a big 4 accounting firm. Why should I trust 2 guys I haven't heard of? And we started the company out of Alex's spare bedroom in his apartment. He had a small apartment, and he had one small room with a futon, with a couch. I was sleeping on there. And we started, and we're making calls. After maybe 100 or so calls, I got super dejected, both of us, and we said, let's start going to events, right? And I think we made 100 calls. This was not 100 calls in months. This was 100 calls in the first 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
Picked up the directory and slammed the phone. Velocity is the currency of high growth startups. And we started going to events now, construction, oil and gas, manufacturing. And man, it was so horrible. We looked like 2 young guys who threw on a suit jacket on top of a hoodie. And they felt like the old Cigars Club, right? There's no vibe. We couldn't interact. So now we completely dejected. We're like, oh man, what are we doing here? Nobody's talking to us. Nobody's interested. So dejected, we said, let's see what is going on in the startup community. Maybe we'll get some inspiration.
Okay.
And dejected, we start going to the local startup events. Like 2469, it was just coming together small. Man, we felt an instant sense of connection. We found our tribe. They were starting a company. We were starting our company. We started hanging out together, partying together, eating, drinking together. We participated in hackathons together. It became our tribe. But now, because we niched down, initially started targeting general business who were investing in product development to only technology startups. So we niched down. We were able to find 2 white spaces. White space number 1 was nobody wanted to service these guys.
Okay.
Right?
Because they don't have money.
They don't have money. Actually, 3 white spaces. White space number 2 is no publication media wanted to give them any coverage or attention.
Okay.
White space number 3 is all the events around business was not targeted towards them. They were high-level, inspirational CEO talks. Now, if you started a company, I don't need Elon Musk's inspiration, right? How many times will I hear that?
Yes.
I need tactics. How do I get my first 10 customers?
Yes.
How do I get my first million in revenue? How do I launch my product? You need that. So we're like, okay, this is great. At least we're getting somewhere, and we love this audience. So I'll pause here to give you another lesson, which is you have an idea. How do you figure out who you sell to? Number 1, do I have a passion for this audience and the topic?
Okay.
Building a company is a long haul. It's a long slog. It's a marathon of the heart and mind. And as you scale, you have to spend more and more time with your customers as founders.
Yes.
That becomes the job. If you hate your customers, you will never be able to sustainably create for them.
Okay.
Number 2, is it a small but growing market? So startup market was small, but we knew it was going to grow because a lot of funding and innovation was happening. And growth always follows innovation. Number 3, is there a propensity to pay? They may not be able to pay you today, but can they eventually pay you? Now, we solved that by saying, we're getting you government money, so we'll just take a percentage out of it. So it was usage-based, rather. And number 4, ease of access. Even if we loved manufacturing and construction, but if we can't access them, we'll never get off the ground. So love for the market, propensity to pay, ease of access, and small but growing market. So that was one. We started there. Because it was small and growing, it was a niche, it was a sub-niche of the general business market. We found these white spaces. And the way we started validating was, as a function of spending time with them, we understood a few things. Because now we're naturally hanging out with them, right? With entrepreneurs all day, all night. We understood that what their pains were, what their goals were. Pains and goals are short-lived. We understood what their long-term aspiration is. Every company that eventually gets to 100 million in revenue doesn't just have one product. You'll have 2 or 3. Look at Salesforce, look at HubSpot, look at any major company. The pain and goal will give you product 1. The aspiration will give you product 2 and 3.
Okay.
So we started with solving the pain, which is R&D tax credits is broken. Then following the aspiration, why do you chase for government money? Because you want money. Government takes a long time to pay the money. What if I can give you money now? So then we securitized R&D credits and started R&D lending. But really, why do you need this money? To invest in innovation, to grow your innovation. I don't want a failed innovation because I'm not going to be able to take that to market. So now it's R&D analytics. And so that's how you follow the aspiration of the customer, not just the goal. The other thing, what we learned as a function of this was the 3 F's around your customer. Who do they fund? Meaning, what are the tools or products they pay for, services? This gives you a list of people you can partner with.
Yes.
To co-host events and
I think
whatnot.
it works very well for me when after the last discussion we had.
Yeah.
It's really works.
You find the right partners. Who do they follow? Who are the influencers in the space? When nobody knows you and you go and align with the influencers for your ideal customers, you get their brand rub, you get their social proof, and as a function of their credibility, you also look credible. And the third thing is, where do they frequent? What blogs, what magazines they read? Are they on LinkedIn or are they on TikTok? If they're on LinkedIn and they're not on any other platform, then why are you spending time on those platforms? So, because a lot of what you do in the early days to be successful is focus. If you spread too thin and are mediocre at everything, you'll never build anything successful. You got to go deep, like inch wide and a mile deep till you get to the first couple million in revenue. And that was important. And so through that process, we said, hey, man, these people only care about getting money. They don't care about software. And that was a key learning, because I did other startups. We did Automatically, which was a chatbot built on top of Zendesk, AI chatbot, and it failed. And did Speakeasy, which was an AI sales assistant. That also failed. We never failed because we didn't have customers. We failed because we were forever trying to make the tech better.
Yes. This is one of the things I mostly observe when I speak to them most of the time. Founders, they just keep building the product over and over and again, then speaking to the customers. And this caused a lot of failures in the early stage, because you need a lot of capital to build a tech.
I just had a very close friend call me who blew through $40 million building an AI product, and the market's passed him by, and he has to shut down. I've talked to 3 entrepreneurs in the last week, friends of mine, who are in a similar boat. In 2023, with generative AI and no-code platforms, building tech is easy. Building an audience and getting customers will always be hard. And so we realized this, and it's not again that we realized this, we were so smart that we had this specific strategy. Necessity is the mother of all inventions. We had
Because
no
you don't have
freaking money.
capital.
We have no freaking money. Nobody's going to fund us. Like, Alex is living on his wife's money. My wife was a resident. And when you're a resident, when you're just outside of med school and you're in residency, you're making $45,000, $50,000 in salary. We literally have no money. So we're like, okay, if we don't get customers to pay us, we will freaking fail, right? and so the step one, you're starting out, how do you validate? You nail your ICP. So we nailed our ideal customer profile. We had the passion. We knew it's a small growing market size. There was a propensity to pay. We knew we had access. And the messaging was resonating. But now instead of building product, we said, can we get 10 people to pay us to try it out?
Okay.
So we convinced people to pay us to try it out, because through our customer development and spending time with them, what we realized is they don't care about software. They care about outcomes. And I'll share this as 100%, especially going into the future. Almost every B2B SaaS tool that needs to be built has been built. Customers care about outcomes, not software. I sign up for a fitness app not because I like to use the app, but because I want to get fit. I sign up for marketing automation not because I love the software, it's because I want more leads. And now what people are starting to see is, man, I sign up for marketing automation or sales automation and I need to hire people to manage it. Why can't I just get the outcome? I think we're going in a world, in a direction where people are going to want to see outcomes.
Yes.
Versus technology. But we started right there because we had no choice. And so we said, hey, will you pay us? We'll get you this money from the government. And we started doing the work manually.
Okay.
We started behind the scenes doing the work very manually. On the website, it looked like, it's a tech company, but we started doing this work manually. That teaches you a few things. Number one, customers want outcomes. They don't want software. Number two, it makes you very good at sales and customer success.
Yes.
Sales because, you can't hide behind your tools and your software. Customer success also because you need to onboard them manually. You need to do the work manually. You got to get them the value, right? If you have software, you can hide behind buttons and widgets and you can do all these things. But when you don't have software, you're forced to expedite the outcome for the customer. And so it helped us get really good at it, build customer relationships and get them the outcome fast. Now, once we had that, then we understood a few things. What are all the manual processes? What are the things we're doing manually? We're collecting data via email. We're trying to make sense of that data.
At what stage have you looked at, revisited what manual process you are going through?
Within the first 6-8 months.
Okay.
You
have 100 customers, let's say.
Less than that. We probably had like a few 100,000 in revenue. But being tech guys, like Alex always in his mind is like, how do I stop doing this work manually? And our first iteration of the software was no code, man. In 2013 was low code, sorry.
Okay.
Zoho. You know Zoho.
Yeah.
So Zoho has a low code
Yes.
Zoho Creator product.
Yes.
We use Zoho Creator and we use Zapier. We're like, okay, we're collecting data manually. Can we expedite that? Now, what are the things you do? Once you collect data, you have to normalize that data. If you're collecting financial data, it's easy, zeros and ones. But if you're collecting technical data, it's all unstructured data. So you got to flatten that. Then you got to analyze it. And then the last step is workflow. Okay, now I got to fill some forms, right? So, but the first iteration that Alex built was Zoho Creator with Zapier. We built our own practice management system that knew everything about the business and the customer. It was complex, built on Zoho Creator. That took us to several million in revenue.
Interesting.
That took us to 3 million in revenue. It was literally low code. If I spent the money to build software, how do I know if customers would care or use it? Customers ultimately was getting the money. Then at about 3 or 4 million, we replatformed and built from the ground up, right?
Okay.
And so that was the process. And so it was understand the customers, their pain points, sell to them, deliver the service manually so you understand everything you need to know about the customer's journey from sign up to outcome.
Yes.
Then figure out what are the things that are the most time consuming in delivering that service manually and start eliminating and digitizing that process. And in parallel, we built a community.
Yes.
Now, the community thing was, we didn't have the money to invest in any sort of marketing.
Yes.
And the community thing also came out of the white space, right? The white space targeting startups was nobody wanted to cover them, and all events were targeted towards big business aspirational talks. So I reached out to the local newspaper and I said, hey, what if I cover startups? Would you give me a column? And they're like, it's not interesting, right? Because we cover big business. I didn't take no for an answer. I reached out to another regional blog and I said, hey, can you give me some coverage? Like I'll cover startups. Can you give me a column? And regional blogs need content all the time. So now what I did was I reached out to a few startups and I covered their story on that blog. It was called Tech Vibes. Now, unlike what most people do is they'll take the content and they'll post it on the platform and they hope the past platform distributes for them.
Okay.
I didn't do that. I literally took that blog post once it went live. I reached out to all my email contacts and my phone contacts and my LinkedIn contacts and everyone in the community. And I said, hey, I've covered startups. Can you give it some love? They blew it up, retweeting and everything.
Okay.
Once it got so much social proof, because back in the day it would say number of shares, views, and everything on the blog, I reached back out to the editor because I wanted to be in the newspaper. It was the highest social proof, right? And he's like, oh my God, how did you do that? I'm like, that is the power of startup. Startup is the fastest growing segment. And if you don't cover startups, you'll lose a demographic. But if you cover startups, you're going to engage a younger demographic that will grow with the newspaper as they grow. He's like, you have a point. I'm going to give you a blog post. Not a column, a blog post. Now, another life lesson here is, as an entrepreneur, unless you're doing something illegal, never ask for permission. Beg for forgiveness. I call that blog post Startup of the Week.
Okay.
Which implied that now, imagine if I'm in Dubai and I go to Khalij Times and I start a column Startup of the Week. What does it imply? That the biggest newspaper in the country is creating this column to support startups, and is done by Lloyd, and he's a messiah, right? We were never getting any coverage. And that's what happened. So I reached out to a guy. I knew he wasn't getting coverage. He had 3 million in funding and he couldn't get coverage. So I covered him, and that blew up. Again, I went to my list, but he blew up. Within a day, the editor called me and he said, Lloyd, if you commit to writing this every week, I freaked out first. I thought he's going to get mad. Why did you call it Startup of the Week? But he's like, if you commit to writing it every week, I'll make it a print column. Now, within few months of me starting the company in that community, I became a print columnist for the largest newspaper, massive social proof for Boast. I got a backlink in the newspaper's blog, which is the highest domain authority website, linking to my website, my new website every week. So my SEO jumped through the roof. And I put a form in there saying, if you want to be featured, apply. So I started building this massive list of startups. And then I did what exactly Jamil does at 2469 now. Everyone who applied would be like, I'm hosting a weekly meetup.
Oh, okay.
There's going to be some free pizza and we're going to talk startup stuff. And so that audience that was building, reading the newspaper column, that's number one, audience. I started bringing them together every week in person. And that turned into a community, interacting with one another. And over time, we started bringing sponsors and partners. And what started as a 10, 15 person meetup at the co-working space eventually transformed into our traction communities, 120,000 subscribers. And we've had Twilio and Uber and all these CEOs come to our events. We do big multi-thousand person conferences. We've done it in San Francisco. We've done it in Vancouver for the last several years. But that's how it evolved. And the social proof of all these people started bringing us customers because now people are partnering with us, people are sponsoring, speakers are coming. So we started getting customers. And so that was the journey, bootstrapping, and in parallel building the audience. So we'll close out with one thing, right? To make my book a bestseller too, it was the same thing, the same community, right?
Because I think also you were mentoring a lot of people at the same time on building communities. And I think that could be one of the reasons that you thought, okay, let me write it in a book format that I can reach out to masses. Because there is no active books on building communities.
On building community. See, the reason why I wrote the book is all my life I had no money and I was happy. And when we sold half the company and I came into millions, I felt I lost my tribe because I left the day-to-day of the company. I got depressed. And what brought me to sanity and good health was a community.
Okay.
And so I said, the world needs to hear this message. And it also enabled us to bootstrap with, the most capital efficient way. We had no marketing team when we were 10 million in revenue. We had no marketing spend at 10 million in revenue. What does that tell you, right? The power of community. And now we have gone through 2 CMOs with the new leadership. Me and Alex stepped out of the day-to-day. We on the board, very active. But we've gone through 2 CMOs and the results are still the community we built, right? And so I started researching and looking at other companies and talking to thousands of people from the community. And I found something very interesting, a very, very interesting insight, which made me write a book, right? And that was every small little idea that eventually went on to become a global, enduring, lasting phenomena, from Christianity to CrossFit, went through the exact same 4 stages. Very common 4 stages. People listen to you or buy your product, you have an audience. When you bring that audience together to interact with one another on a cadence, it becomes a community. Now, here's the kicker. Here's how you go from community to a cult-like brand. When that community comes together to create impact towards a purpose that's beyond your product or profit, it becomes a movement. And everyone wants to be tied to a purpose that's beyond just making somebody money, right? But now, when that movement comes together regularly around rituals, over time, it becomes a cult or a religion. Look at Christianity, look at Hinduism. I'm talking religions here, but look at CrossFit, look at Harley Davidson, look at Nike. It followed that journey of audience, community, movement, cult, religion.
Very interesting.
And so that was the insight that made me realize I got to write a book around this. And I wanted to summarize the thought of building a capital efficient or bootstrap company. To close all of this off, to build a startup, there's only 4 stages. And you got to be maniacally focused on what these 4 stages are. Phase 1 or stage 1 is validation. You have an idea. You got to figure out who the ideal customer profile is. And you got to figure out if the right messaging that will resonate with them. That is the leading indicator. Now, what is the goal of validation? The goal of validation is you get 10 people to pay you to try it out. Close it or fast forward it? Yeah, I'll wrap up. We're just wrapping up. Yeah, just wrapping up. 3 minutes, wrap up.
Yeah.
Right? Phase 2 is product market fit. Product market fit means the people who paid you to try it out will not leave you, they'll stay. As a bootstrap company, NPS score and none of that matters. What matters is customers who paid you don't leave you. If they leave you, you can't eat. So the leading indicator of product market fit is engagement. They're using you. They're engaged with you. Once you have product market fit, the third phase is product channel fit or go-to-market fit. Go-to-market fit means you have one repeatable, scalable channel to get customers. You can try 10 things, but if you're mediocre, you'll fail. You're getting pulled, you're getting leads in one way. For us, it was community. The lagging indicator or the outcome, what you want, is you have a low CAC payback period or low customer acquisition cost payback period. If it costs you 10 to acquire a customer that pays you in 4 years, that's not good. If you're VC backed, fine.
Yes.
But if you're a bootstrap company, the money you spend on acquiring a customer
Has to come in the same month.
has to come in this ideally less than 6 months, right? It has to come very quickly. And once you hit that validation, which is one kind of customer, product market fit, meaning one kind of value, and product channel fit, meaning one kind of channel, one customer, one channel, one value, then you're at a point of scale. And at scale, you spend 75% putting fuel on the fire, get the same kind of customer, put more in the channel, add more value, and 25% of the time trying new things. Can I add a new product? Can I add a new channel? Or can I add a new market? Validation, product market fit, product channel fit, and scale, and layer on the audience, community, movement, religion, or cult on that
And
validation.
at what
to
point
scale.
have you decided to raise a fund?
We actually didn't raise money. We sold 52% of the company to a growth equity fund. And it so happened that during COVID, people were looking for interesting businesses that were capital efficient. And we were 80% gross margin, growing at 100% and bootstrapped. And when you're bootstrapped and have high gross margin and you're close to 10 million in revenue, options open up. You keep more of your company and you can choose the life of freedom. That should be episode 2 maybe. We can talk all about that.
Yes, very good. I think it's the conversation going to be long and long as we speak.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.